So, do you remember what your ARV was for this house?
Yeah, wasn't it like 650?
Yeah, the appraisal came back. We have a problem.
Well, what was it?
So the appraisal came back, and it seems that we're off by like $180,000. We got to figure out what we're going to do because this appraisal absolutely is messed up, and it doesn't even reflect what is reality. So this is a major highway, and they've crossed it with 3 of the comps. This one's across a pretty decent road, and these are out of the neighborhood. It looks like some of these are over a year old, and the entirety of them is just not accurate. We're off by over 600 square feet on some of these. Come on.
So what are we going to do? Because we close tomorrow.
Looks like we're going to have to do some gap funding and then get this reappraised by a separate appraiser. It looks like this was probably what's called a desktop appraisal. So somebody just looked at it from their computer. We need an actual boots on the ground appraisal.
One of the solutions we ended up having to come up with was how to get us from our impending closing that has now been kicked out because the appraisal was off to the closing table right now because our contract wasn't going to move. So what we had to do is we had to find a way to fill the gap, and we use gap funding, and what it does is it makes it so that we have about a 2-week period where we're paying someone out to borrow their money. It's at a cheaper rate, it's not at a longer term, and the beauty of it is that we can pay it back with no penalty. It ends up costing more out of our long term, but it becomes a viable play because of how much money we end up getting in the back end. So we're going to put some temporary money in place. That's how we're going to end up solving the issue. And while this money is in place, we're going to do a new appraisal. We're going to clean up the appraisal process. And once we have that all set, our final financing, which should be ready to go now, will be ready to go then. And they'll put the money back into the hands of the gap fund that we borrowed. What we're doing is not a traditional gap fund. What we're actually going to fill it with is going to be a short-term loan, a 3-month loan, backed by the real estate asset on the same. So a traditional gap fund comes in and they put the money down. You're going to pay about 2 to 3 points depending on who you work with. The 2 to 3 points are non-refundable. They have extensions where if you continue to use it month over month, you're going to pay another point every month that you hold on to it, kind of like 12% interest. The particular loan that we decided to use is going to be 12% interest for 3 months, amortized over a year. We're going to be using 1 point down, and all the closing costs and everything are wrapped into the loan. So at the end of the day, we're going to be spending less money on a 3-month loan with no prepayment penalty than we would on a gap fund option. At the end of the day, when you look at all the numbers, we're only going to be using the money for about 2 weeks, which means we're only going to be using about 0.5% of cost versus the gap funding is going to be 1% every month or 3% up front. In the long term, we end up saving quite a bit of money. We woke up the day before closing, and our thought process was, okay, we're going to review our appraisal, and then we're going to sign everything and get ready for closing tomorrow. All of our money was already moved, everything was ready to go. That ends up not being the case. We got our appraisal back, and things did not work out for us. So that meant that the rest of the day was finding an action plan. And then we had to scramble. We had to call all of our family, all of our private investors, and our network of people to come to the point where we could actually use some type of money or some type of financial relationship to fill in the gap. And really, we knew we wanted the property, and we knew we wanted to close it with this loan because it's very favorable terms in the long term. But we knew that we weren't going to hit the closing mark. And we also knew that our particular agent wasn't going to be moving the closing date. So we had to go to work. We ended up losing a whole day of work just to finding money to get into the situation. Trying to find money is one thing, but trying to find money that you need to deploy in the next couple of days is really, really hard. During our 2 weeks, the end goal becomes that with our bought time, we have to get our original financing to the closing mark. We're going to take these 2 weeks to get a new appraisal, to get everything solidified from where we need it to be, so that we can then come in and close the deal with our longer-term financing in a more proper way.
Check back with us every week to find more information as we continue to go down this journey.